So let's begin with President Xi Jinping's latest pledges to bring down carbon emissions, carbon intensity by 40 to 45% by year 2020. Of course, the significance of fighting climate change goes without saying. Countries have been trying to come up with a pact ever since they failed to agree with each other in Copenhagen in 2009. So what specific contributions do you think China can make when it comes to bring down greenhouse gas emissions?
China is one of the biggest greenhouse gas emitters in the world and biggest consumers of some energy, which produces a lot of greenhouse gas like coal. It's highly relied on the consumption of coal to power its economy for the daily life of people. So China has acknowledged its special responsibility for reducing greenhouse gas, and also China has been working with other countries, including developed countries such as the United States, to promote the agenda to reduce the emissions to deal with the climate change. And just so we know that during President Xi Jinping's visit to the United States and Washington, D.C. In a summit with President Obama, the two sides released yet another announcement on climate change. We know that last year in Beijing, in the November summit, there was a landmark agreement between the two countries to map out their action towards 2030. So each country announced their goal to reduce the greenhouse gas emission by 2030. That is a landmark move taken by both China and the United States. And China is not only doing its part, but also working with other developing countries to formulate a consolidated position on that. So for China, it stands for a common but differentiated responsibility among the developed and developing countries. China knows that, yes, as a developing country, China has a special responsibility to take, and also I would like to work with other developing countries and also with developed countries for the goal.
But at the heart of the disagreement between developed countries and developing countries is what kind of responsibility they should be bearing when it comes to fighting climate change. They think that their contribution should be made in proportion to their economic development stage. So what's your take on this? How do you read into this shared but also differentiated responsibility?
Yes, all countries have a responsibility, no matter the size of the country or the population. But the developed countries have a special responsibility because they are the ones which are already devoted a lot, contributed a lot to the already climate change, and they are developed. They have their financial resources, so they should take the lead to reduce the reliance on some greenhouse gas producing energy, and to change and improve some of the mode of production, and change some of the ways of consumption. And so to take the lead also, they should invest more in technology, which leads to less use of greenhouse gas producing energy and manufacturing. Also, they should contribute more to help assist developing countries in meeting the demands for fighting global warming. Actually, the developed countries have committed to contribution of $100 billion annually towards 2020. But many countries actually have lagged behind the schedule to meet that kind of commitment. So China is urging these developed countries to honor their commitment to help with the developing countries. Of course, China and other developing countries should also shoulder their responsibility. And China is actually leading by example for this and sets very ambitious goal domestically.
But Mr. Jia, I'd like to also ask you this. There's a prize when it comes to fighting climate change, and in China's case, it's the economy. China's economy has been facing downward pressure. So is this prize too much for China to control emissions cut and at the same time to develop its economy?
Yes, indeed. Actually, China has always been facing a dilemma. When its economy grew at a staggering speed, at about average 10% for 30 years.
But the double-digit growth rate has been slowing down.
Yeah, but when it grows very fast, it uses a lot of energy, a lot of coal to power the economy. It produces a lot of green gas. But it has been under pressure to reduce the reliance on energy and to change the mode of production and even development, and to have a kind of environment-friendly development model. But when its economy is slowing down, it has to make sure that it still feeds people, and provide jobs for people, has to make sure that an economy develops at a standard, kind of a certain level, or not below 7%. That means that, well, it has to still consume a great amount of energy, rely on in some degree, the original mode of production. So that's kind of dilemma. Both when its economy grew very fast, and then now when its economy is slowing. But China still making great efforts to take the lead, reducing the green gas emissions. It has a national agenda. For example, it has several ways to tackle that.
Well, Mr. Jia, but just let's go back a little bit. You mentioned President Xi and President Obama reached a climate change deal last November here in Beijing when they were attending the APEC leaders meeting. And then President Xi made more pledges when he met President Obama again in Washington, D.C., and again during this luncheon here at the UN headquarters. So how do we evaluate the progress that the two countries have been made, or China has been made, since the two leaders came up with an agreement last November?
First of all, now China has come up with a plan to implement a national cap and trade emission trading system. That's a huge step, a big step taken by China.
Do you think it has the potential to become a game changer?
I think so in certain ways, because on the one hand, it helps some industries maintain their growth rate and to produce, to provide jobs for people. On the other hand, it helps those companies with advanced technology, with less reliance on coal and other mode of production that produce a lot of green gas. So that's kind of a cap and trade. To make sure that China maintains a lower level of emission, at the same time can help industries develop. So it has identified quite a number of key industries, and also has a pilot system. That is about 7 pilot cities have joined the program, and China has learned gained experience already for that. Now it would like to spread that experiences to have this national agenda of a cap and trade.
And Mr. Jia, we understand that fighting climate change is a global issue that requires efforts from different countries, the developing world, the developed world, and also the small island nations who claim that they are the victim of climate change. But also let's turn to another very contended issue here during President Xi's visit to the U.S. and also his speeches at the UN headquarters. China has promised a slew of projects to help the developing world in terms of South-South cooperation. What are your readings into this proposal?
Yes, President Xi Jinping has made quite a number of proposals in promoting the cooperation among the South-South countries to promote their development. And for example, China would like to relieve the least developed countries, island nations, and inland nations of their debt due this year. That will help those countries reduce their burden, help them. And also China will invest more in these countries, so about $20 billion by 2030. And mostly, actually, I believe that investment will go to infrastructure, connectivity, and poverty relief, and education. So it will help those countries. And also, China will contribute more to the fund for the development of South-South. And also, actually, there is another way. That is, China is working with other developed countries to help developing countries. For example, during President Xi Jinping's trip to the United States and summit with President Obama, the two sides have agreed to promote the development agenda. This is the first time the two countries officially promote intergovernmental development agenda to work with third countries with the development agenda to help them meet the post-2015 development agenda. And of course, there are other ways China helped the developing countries. For example, China has proposed the Silk Road Economic Belt and the 21st Century Maritime Silk Road. These two major initiatives will involve dozens of countries, most of which are developing countries. Mostly these projects, under the framework of these initiatives, will cover infrastructure, again, transportation, port building, and also connectivity, railroad, telecommunications, so on and so forth. So these initiatives certainly will promote the development of the developing countries.